Stephen King has written so many books, but what's kind of wild is that some of his most famous ones came right at the start of his career, and I decided to go back to the very beginning. Yes, that's right. We're going to talk about all of Stephen King's books published in the 70s. I actually made a version of this video really early on when I just started my channel. But that was early days and I wanted to revisit it and do it again. I'm on a journey to read all of Stephen King's books in the order they were published. That's novels and short stories. But what actually inspired this was one of his non-fiction works, which is on writing, part memoir, part masterclass, and a definite 5-star. I was so intrigued by this book. It made me want to read his books in order, not just for the hell of it, but to see how his writing, themes, storytelling evolve over time. And it's been such an interesting experience. I really love his writing. He has a knack for creating incredibly engaging plots and characters. Like one of my favorite characters of all time in any book comes from one of his books, The Stand, but we'll get to that a little bit later. But there are also some choices in certain scenes and in his language that it doesn't always work for me, especially his use of the N-word. Now, I understand wanting to write characters authentically, especially for the time, but most of the time it just feels unnecessary and really takes me out of the story a bit. So that's definitely something that I've noticed in these earlier books, and I'm curious to see if that will change as I keep going. Okay, so I'm gonna go through all of his books from his 70s era. I'm gonna give you my thoughts and which ones I think are actually worth your time. The first one is Carrie. Now, this is where it all started. He actually threw this in the trash and his wife pulled it out and told him to finish it, which is kind of insane thinking about, considering what happened next. It's not his best work, but I think it's a fantastic first book. Carrie is a bullied teenager with latent telekinetic powers. There we have it. And a fanatical mother. She is pushed to her limit, leading to horrific events that the town might never recover from. I really love the structure of this book. It's told through interviews and articles and different perspectives, which makes it seem so much more real. His next book was Salem's Lot. And with this one, he basically asked the question, what would happen if a Dracula-type vampire settled down in a sleepy, small town? What I loved about this book is how slowly the dread builds. Like that creeping feeling that something is very, very wrong. And I really like the structure of this one as well. We get these different perspectives from different people in the town, which kind of even more heightens the feeling that the whole place is slowly being taken over. Then we have The Shining. Now this book scared the freaking crap out of me. I mean, I only read this when it was daytime. After dark? No. So Jack Torrance, a recovering alcoholic and aspiring writer, takes a winter caretaker job at the Overlook Hotel with his wife Wendy and their psychic 5-year-old son Danny. The hotel feeds on its inhabitants, manipulating and scaring them, coming for them as the snow falling outside closes them in. I've watched the movie so many times and I still couldn't put this down. I mean, except that night, but hey, that was for my own protection. But if you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to pick up the book, I've already seen the movie, I mean, pick it up. I think this is incredibly good. Then in the order of publication, we have Rage. This one I haven't actually read. It was withdrawn from publication, so I haven't been able to. The book was actually linked to several real-life school shootings in the 80s and 90s. King made the choice to let the book go out of print to prevent it from potentially inspiring further violence. Then we arrive at his first short story collection, which is Night Shift. And this is a strange one. We have connections to Salem's Lot. We have famous stories as Children of the Corn. And then we have some very weird ones, which I kind of like. I'm not like a big short story person, but this really shows that Stephen King can master that format as well as novels. Now for the big one, The Stand. And this is a chunky one. I mean, God, it's so heavy. And yeah, this is one of his most famous books. It's a masterpiece. It's a massive post-apocalyptic story about a world-ending virus. But what really makes it stand out is the characters. We also have a bit of a good and evil situation going on. I actually read this right after the pandemic, and there's a chapter in here about the spread of infection, which stressed me out so much. I really love the first part of this book, meeting all the characters, getting to know them, following the collapse of society. You really get sucked in. But there was one part of the book where it felt like it started to drag a bit. And Stephen King has talked about this as well, how he felt stuck, didn't really know how to continue. And in my opinion, you kind of feel that. But then, let's just say that he found a way to move forward. As I mentioned, we have one of my favorite characters in here, Nick Andros. Nick is a deaf mute with a very big heart, and I just loved reading this character. I thought it was so interesting to read from his perspective, his struggles, how he thinks, how he communicates. Such good character work. Actually, I was torn about when in the order of things I was going to read this, because when it was published, it was a couple of 100 pages shorter. His publicist made him edit it a lot. And then in the 90s, he published this version, which is 1,300 pages. But then I felt, well, he wrote it in the 70s, so I should read it now. And I really didn't want to wait, you know? Well, we can talk about The Stand all day. That's like its own video. So let's move on. So we go from something very, very big to something a lot more concentrated. And this might be one of my favorite Stephen King books, which is The Long Walk. A dystopian novel about 100 teenage boys in a police state America who compete in a deadly annual marching contest. It's brutal, both in concept and emotionally, and it's so good. It's the characters, the stress of knowing that only one will survive, and the heart, which is the relationship that builds between these boys. And the film might be even better, or to quote my friend, awful, great movie, I will never see it again. The movie fixes some of the issues that I had with the book, mainly some of the main characters' choices that sometimes don't even feel like the actual character and sometimes just feel unnecessary. Great book. And that, my friends, brings us to the last book of the 70s, which is The Dead Zone. I mean, this one feels freakishly relevant. It's about a man who gains psychic abilities, and the way it touches on politics and powers honestly feels a little bit too on point for today. I felt so much for our main character in this book. And there's so much tension and unease. Yeah, it was really, really good. And the last book of the 70s. Okay, so how do we sum up these first years of his writing career? Well, you can really tell that writing had been a part of Stephen King's life for a long time before his first novel was published. And to write something like The Stand so early on, to me, it's just remarkable. I think that's my biggest surprise from the 70s. Like, this doesn't feel like someone who is figuring it out. It feels like someone who already knows exactly what he's doing. That he draws from himself, consciously or not, also shines through. So many of his characters are writers, like Ben Mears in Salem's Lot and Jack Torrance in The Shining. Some struggle with addiction. There's also no question that he likes cars. Then we also have the concept of his multiverse, which he expands on in the Dark Tower series, so we won't talk about it too much here. But you can kind of see him laying the foundation with characters, places, themes, and cosmic forces. I think that sums it up. Have you read any of his books from the 70s? And if so, which one was your favorite? I don't know if I mentioned, but the next one for me now is Christine. Not really sure about that one. But then we have The Pet Cemetery, which I am equally excited and terrified to read. So when I reached the middle of the 80s, I thought I'd do a follow-up video on this one, doing like an 80s part 1. As always, thank you for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next one.